Hello and welcome to the September TCL Teen BakeAlong, one of 3 videos we will be doing this month, thanks in part to the Institute of Museum and Library Services through the Library Services and Technology Act, administered by the State Library of Oregon. So, the first one we're going to be doing today is brown butter shortbread. Now, the brown butter is exactly what it sounds like. You cook butter low and slow, or medium and slow, to turn it brown, essentially. It brings out this really good roasty, really nutty flavor. And obviously I'll show you how to do that. It seems kind of intimidating because you don't want to burn it, but it's really good. And then shortbread, now if you've had let's say like a Girl Scout cookie, if you've ever had the tagalongs, those are shortbread. It's just a very tender cookie. I'm really excited to try this because I don't get to make shortbread very much. And I'm excited to show you how to do it, especially since it's a little more challenging, what with the brown butter and such. But I believe in you. I know you can do it. So let's tie on our aprons and let's get started. So here are all the tools and ingredients that you will need. You got all your dry ingredients, your vanilla extract, a big bowl to mix everything together, a wooden spoon to do that mixing, butter, obviously very important for brown butter shortbread, a pot for melting the butter, and this is special. This is a hot plate. Now you won't need a hot plate, obviously you just need a top of a stove, but also thanks in part to that grant I mentioned in our intro, we've got a hot plate. So hopefully once we can do a little bit more baking in person, we can do some cooking together using one of these guys. So that's all you'll need, at least for making the dough. We'll need a bit more stuff a little bit later for actually making the cookies and for chilling the dough, but we'll get to that when we come to it. So for now, get all your stuff gathered and prepped, and let's get going. So the first thing we're doing is browning the butter, and we're going to start by doing that at medium-low heat. So for that, my hot plate goes up to about 11, so super, super high. So for medium-low, we're gonna start at about 3. And we're doing this because we want it to melt slowly, so we don't burn anything. And then we'll turn it up a little bit because another part of the goal of browning butter is to get all the water out of it. So essentially when we're done, it's going to be obviously darker, but it's also going to be much thicker. And I'm really excited for that because it's also going to taste really good. And make sure you've got your large bowl handy because as the butter browns, we're going to get some real good, like little brown bits, and we're going to want to take those bits out and put them into that bowl because we want those in the dough because that's how we're going to get some of our real good flavor too. Okay, so all of the butter is melted, and you see that white up there. Those are butter solids. So that's part of what we're wanting to brown. So now that it's all melted, we're turning it up to medium, which it's about 11. So I'm doing it 5 just to see, because what we want to do is turn it up to medium. So it'll simmer and it should hiss and pop, is according to what our recipe says. So it's going to make sound. So essentially that's the sound of that water bubbling away and the butter solids cooking. And maybe we'll get some of those good hisses and pops on camera, and you don't have to stir constantly. I'm just keeping an eye on it just to make sure that it goes okay. Yeah, but you can see those places where those bubbles are trying to form. Not much movement yet, but I'm still keeping it low. And this is okay. This part might take, it won't be the longest step because we have to chill the dough for a long time, but this will probably be the longest active step. And that's okay. Because you'd rather do something that takes a while than do it fast and then you burn your butter, you know? There we go. You can already see those, yeah, those solids separating from that liquid there, which is exactly what we want. We got little bubbles forming, so that's good. So it's heating up, which means we're just gonna stay at this heat and keep an eye on it. Okay, it's still really quiet, but you can hear that hissing and popping I was talking about. Oh, yep, there we go. That is exactly what we want. Yes, so keep that stirring. It's gonna get a little bit louder when you stir, but that's okay. Yeah, so that's getting that water out of that butter. There we go. Yeah, you can see it clearing up a bit too. Okay, so hopefully you can see, but after letting it sit for a little bit, we're getting some good brown bits on the bottom. So, just because, I'm going to turn it down a little bit so those don't get too brown. Any brown bits that form along the way. Okay, so we see these brown bits. We kind of want to, there's a fair amount of them. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a spoon here. See if I can just put those, sorry for the loud metal sounds here, see if I can just get those bits. Because that's exactly what we want, is all of those good bits. But they can be a little tough to get. There we go. Yeah, so just as you see these brown bits, which as you can see, you're probably going to get a lot of, maybe try and do what I'm doing, which is getting a spoon here. Slowly dripping off the butter. And then putting the bits in there. Obviously, if you get a little bit of butter in with the bits, that's okay. There we go, yeah. See, we got a lot of good brown bits in there. Ooh, that's good. It actually might just be about there. Yeah, golden yellow and perfectly silent is what we want the butter to be, which is a funny thing to describe butter as, isn't it? But I think we might actually just be about there. Yeah, so I'm going to do one more. I'm going to quick put it back on just to see if it makes any sounds, but I think we're there. Because even though it's got those bubbles, that froth on top, it is silent butter. And we've got lots of brown bits there. So, you know what? I'm not going to tempt fate here. So that didn't take a lot of time, which is good. But it just sort of goes to show that when it comes to cooking something like browned butter, it seems like it's going really slow, and then it can go really fast. I've turned my heat off, so that's why I'm still looking at it. But this will be what you want. Lots of brown bits. Those are those dairy solids, which we've cooked up. The water bubbled off pretty quick because this pan's a little bit larger, so it took very little time. We got froth, but that's okay. And now you're gonna pour it into your bowl, your mixing bowl, and let that cool. So we want it to cool till it's creamy and opaque. So essentially it's just, it'll look like if you've ever dropped butter on something. It won't ever go back to fully solid butter, but once it stops being, you know, a shiny liquid and you can sort of drag a spoon through it a bit more, I'll show you when we get there, but that's what you want. So we're gonna put this in our bowl and let it cool. And we're back with our brown butter. So what I had to do actually was put it in the fridge and then take it out and let it soften back up again. You can see it's got that opaqueness. It's not as creamy, but it should still function just fine. So what we're gonna do now is add our, there's gonna be a lot of crinkling here, add our sugar, the malted milk powder, with the baking soda and baking powder, and the vanilla extract. And this might take a little bit of elbow grease, but we're gonna mix it all together until it's light and fluffy, and you'll see what that looks like when we're all finished. Okay, so that actually didn't take too terribly long, but it did take a little bit of arm strength. So here's what it looks like when you beat it sufficiently. You'll see how it's all come together, and it's a bit more, there you go. It is fluffier as opposed to, you know, when it was just kind of chunks. You can see it's got some kind of volume to it. So now that we've got that all done, we add our flour. And this we're going to mix gently until just combined. A lot of this is because we want it to stay tender, and you're probably gonna need a, yeah, we're gonna need a rubber spatula for this. Maybe, we'll see. Okay, yeah, we'll need a rubber spatula, and that's fine. So something to scrape it off that spoon there so that it comes together a little more cohesively. And this might also just take a little bit of time, but that's okay. It also smells really good. I don't know if you've ever had malted milk powder in anything, but if you've had a Whopper, those chocolate covered malted milk balls, then you've had malted milk in some capacity. And I think it tastes really good. Okay, see, it still seems a little dry, but it is all combined. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our spatula, we're gonna get that all scraped down there, and see if we can't form it into a ball. Okay. There, well, kinda. There we go. Okay. All right. So it's a little dry, so I'm actually going to add just a tiny bit of water. I'm treating it kind of like biscuit dough here. There we go, that's a little bit better. Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay, so you might need, if your dough's looking a little bit dry, you might need to add some, just a splash of water to it. So now that we've got this, we're going to move it to our parchment paper or plastic wrap. Put it on our there. And we just want it into a nice little log shape. It'll be fairly short, but that's okay. There we go. You want it to look fairly even. There, not bad at all. All right, so once you've got it log shaped, roll your plastic wrap or parchment paper over it. Try and roll it up as tight as you can. There we go. Perfect. And once you've done that, we want to tie it off, or at least kind of fold it over, because we don't want it to dry out too much. So what I'm going to do is just fold these over here. And I'm going to just give it an additional little plastic wrap, I think. So if you've got plastic wrap, if you're using plastic wrap, not parchment paper, just wrap it up nice and tight in that plastic wrap, as tight as you can. If you're using parchment paper, just do a little bit of a double wrap here. Just to make sure, there we go, it stays in shape and doesn't dry out while it's chilling. Make it look almost like a burrito. All right, so we got a burrito. We're gonna put this in the fridge for 4 hours because we want it to be very, very cold. So we're gonna let this go take a long cold nap and then we'll be back. So it's been 4 hours. Our dough was chilled. Once you've got it out of the fridge after that 4 hours, put it on the counter for about 10 minutes to kind of soften it up just a little bit so it's still very cold but not rock hard. And now what we're gonna do is slice this log into about 1/2 inch-ish pieces as best you can. I'm gonna use a knife for this actually. There we go. Okay, so these look a little strange because my log's a little weird, but we'll see how they work. There we go. I think I'm a little bit thicker actually. Yeah, that's, okay, that's probably more like 1/4 inch, so we're gonna go back, do 1/2 here. I should be able to get, you know, with my couple mishaps, looks about 8 or so out of here. Okay, yeah, so I got about 8 out of that. And on my hands. Okay. So we're gonna cook these for about 15 minutes, but what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna start with 12, and then I'm gonna check back just to see where we're at. Just in case. So we're gonna start with 12, and then if we need to do more, we will. So let's get these into the oven and see how they turn out. All right, so we did 12, and then I actually did have to do about 2 more minutes. So I had to do 14 minutes. And by golly, they're cookie shaped. They look really good. They're a little small, but that's okay. That's normally what you get with a shortbread. You can see there was a fair bit of spread, but not too much. So we're gonna do what you do with cookies. You let them sit for just a few minutes to let them cool off just a little bit, and then move them to your cooling rack. Or if you don't have one, just let them sit here until they're cool enough to handle. So we'll let them cool for a bit, and then we'll be back to give them a taste. All right, our cookies have cooled, so it is time to give them a taste. Ooh. Crunchier. Sweet. Well, that's good. You can taste the brownness in the butter. Because what happens when you cook butter and make it brown like that, you get like this little, like this subtle nutty flavor. And that really is what you get with this one. It's really good. So that's going to do it for this episode of the September TCL Teen Bake-Along. I hope you enjoyed these brown butter cookies. I hope they turned out for you okay. And that you got to try something new and something maybe a little bit more challenging. Because that's part of what baking is about too, is trying something a little bit different, challenging yourself. Sometimes it might not always work out, and it might not even turn out to be what it's supposed to be, but it can still be tasty. So, we will see you in the next one.